we all know, the moment you post anything on a forum, you make a video about caliber, it turns into a mess. No more group of people are as ferocious and defend their caliber choice with so much vigor as people who love the 45 ACP. Those individuals who subscribe to the notion that the 45 is the only caliber that should be carried in a handgun or concealed carry gun, these two guns here provide very formidable options as far as which guns to carry. Each of these guns have completely different manual of arms and basically speak to different types of people. So granted, this is a head-to-head comparison, but it's more so kind of a head-to-head review with respect to which gun would best suit you, which would fit you as a concealed carrier if you just need to carry a 45, if it's just mandatory. As far as looks are concerned between these two firearms, I'm gonna be pretty blatant as far as what my take on the aesthetic appeal of both of these guns are, and I'm just gonna flat out tell you that I like the look of the Sig Sauer much better than I do the Glock 36. Now, anybody who's in the Glocks, known Glocks or anything of that sort, the Glocks are really nothing to kind of brag about. They're not anything really special in terms of looks. Now, the 36 may be a bit different from the standpoint that it's the only single stack gun available by Glock. And then as such, you have a difference in appearance as far as how thin the gun is. So it does give it a bit of a different look, but as far as aesthetic appeal, it's still just a Glock. So it's nothing just really kind of scream and shout about. It's Glock. Now, as far as the Sig Sauer P220 goes, as far as the looks are concerned, like I said, I love the looks of this way more than I do the Glock. And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that there's more character, there's more personality to this gun than there is with the Glock. Now, with this is a bit more busy, but it's definitely not overdone. And it has a really rugged look to it, but yet it's still kind of a handsome firearm in that regard. And I do like the look of the grips on the P220. And I really am a fan of the decocker. I think the decocker kind of adds a little more oomph as far as how this gun appears when you pick it up for the first time. And I do like the fact that the barrel hood on this particular firearm is kind of chromed up. It's not really blacked out. Now, it does give the appearance that this gun is used even when it's new, but I tend to like it. Like I said, it gives it a bit more character than the Glock as far as looks are concerned. Now, like I said before in the beginning of this video, these two guns are completely different in terms of manual arms use and all that stuff. Granted, they are chambered in the same round and exhibit the same capacity, but they're two different guns from this standpoint, especially from an ergonomic standpoint. The Sig Sauer P220 is really perfect. The way the grips are molded, the shape, the contours of the actual grip, and then the attention to detail in terms of making sure certain grooves are rounded off. And you can just tell that when they designed this gun that they thought about the end user as far as how comfortable it's going to be in somebody's hand. And quite frankly, they did a good job. And the reason why is because even though the grip is relatively short, it still feels like you're carrying a full-size handgun as far as the grip is concerned. Now, I do have a little pinky hanging, like the edge of the pinky hanging off here, but I still get the type of support I need with this pinky extension. It really feels great in hand. All the controls are easily accessible. Now, I still do need to cant the gun a bit to drop the magazine, and also to drop the slide. It is a little stiff, but I'm assuming once it gets breaking in, that'll be totally different, as you can see here. And then also with the decocker, it allows me to easily reach over and decock that. The Glock 36, for that matter, as far as ergonomics are concerned, now you talk to some people, they tell you this thing is world renowned, the best when it comes to ergonomics, simply because it is so much thinner than any other Glock you've encountered. Now, is it the thinnest gun out? Hardly. But since Glocks are known to be so thick and fat, for them to come out with a single stack, the differences seem that much more drastic because they've never done it. But here's what I will say. Though the gun feels good in hand, there's something about and you can tell that literally they just simply cut the gun in half. And what I mean is they literally just went from a double to a single. They didn't really think end user as far as how this is actually going to feel in your hand. And the reason I say that is because if you look at how the back is and how it contours and how thin it is, what ends up happening is when you grip this gun, it kind of, granted, it's the edges are smoothed out and there's nothing really sharp, but you can feel how thin it is and you just kind of feel it stabbing into the back of your hand. And it kind of gives this weird sensation. Even though my hands are completely wrapped around the gun, I still feel almost like I don't have a complete grip of it. Now, don't get me wrong, like I said, the gun feels good in hand, but compared to the Sig, and it's a bit more beefy, a bit more robust, the Sig feels much more comfortable. This just feels like it's thinner. It doesn't feel more comfortable, it just feels thinner and smaller. Everyone knows what the trigger on the Glock is like. You got a 5.5 pound trigger pull to begin with. Got a loud, pronounced, definitive reset, as you can see right there. And we got the same 5.1 pound trigger pull. I like the Glock trigger, I do. Is it the greatest? Nope. Is it the best? Not at all, but it works. It does what it needs to do and it's combat effective. I think for a combat weapon, the Glock trigger is really good actually. Now, when we're talking about the Sig Sauer P220 and its trigger, that's when things kind of get a little janky. And what I mean by that is this. This trigger needs to be broken in, just like most triggers, but this trigger noticeably needs to be broken in. It is a double action, single action, which also changes the characteristics of the trigger as well. So with that being said, you have a long, heavy first pull, which actually is honestly not that bad. I've seen worse, a lot worse. And it is heavy, but it's not that long. And it does have some creep, but it isn't bad. There's a creep right there. From there to there. At your staging, and then at that point, drop it. Now, I do have a hard time trying to stage the trigger because the break is a little erratic. It just kind of comes when it wants to. But it isn't a deal breaker. Now, when we start talking about the reset is where this gun kind of starts to lose a little bit. As we extend the trigger up, the reset is pretty long, and it is pronounced and positive, and there's your reset. But then the take up is pretty drastic as well, as you can see here. And then you got light pull and single action. The single action pull, it's just there. It's a little mushy. It's not bad, but it could be a lot better. I will say that. It could be a lot better. And so from that standpoint, it is lighter and easier to pull than a Glock. Glock's reset, I will say that. But it is a little mushy. But I do tend to like the face on this trigger more than I do the Glock. It's more comfortable, it's more contoured to my finger, so it works a little bit better for me in that regard. Whereas the Glock, on the other hand, is kind of, like I said, it's very utilitarian. It's just, you got the serrations on there that kind of get a little aggravating, prolonged shooting, and you got to contend with this little stupid safety blade in the middle. And I'm just not a fan of it. But for the most part, as far as the triggers are concerned, me personally, it's kind of a toss-up. From a concealed carry standpoint, the Glock 36 looks as if to be a gun that was purposely designed from the ground up as a concealed carry weapon. The 36 is really thin, especially compared to any other Glocks that are out there. This is the only single stack Glock that Glock makes. And basically this is akin to the Glock 30, which is going to be double the size and the weight of this particular firearm. And what you lose out in making a gun this small, chambered in the 45 round, is you lose out in terms of capacity. So where the Glock 30 has 10 rounds, or 9 rounds, 10 rounds actually, you have only 6. Now, the Sig Sauer, on the other hand, it really isn't a purposely built concealed carry weapon. All they've done is basically took a regular Sig Sauer P220 and chopped down basically took a regular P220 and cut down the size of the grip, and also made it a single stack. Now, It's not bad per se, but it isn't as purpose driven as the Glock is. So in that case, that tends to make the Glock 36 a more concealable weapon, as you can see here. And so from that standpoint, the Glock is honestly, on an objective standard, is going to take it, because not only is it thinner, as you can see here, not only is it more thinner than the Sig Sauer, but the weight, the Sig Sauer is an all alloy frame weapon, and the weight is noticeably heavier than the Glock 36, because of course the Glock 36 is polymer. So, but then also what you have is issues with things that can get snagged. Like I said, this isn't really a purpose-driven concealed carry weapon. You have a hammer, you have a decocker, you have all things that could possibly get snagged, and therefore kind of holding it back as far as being a good concealed carry weapon. And it's heavy. It really is just that heavy. But what you do get from that is you do still get the feel of a full-size gun in a relatively compact size and frame. So from that standpoint, even though the Glock 36 is going to be a better concealable weapon, there are some trade-offs with the lack thereof on this gun, and that make it almost kind of as desirable for a concealed carry weapon to some other people. Both of these guns are great guns. I have no issues with any of them, really, no major issues at least that I can say. And the Glock 36 is kind of the bastard child of the Glock world. But nonetheless, I do think it was a great concept, a great idea, and I think they should stick with it. I do think they should probably make some improvements, and I do believe they should make a Gen 4 and then improve on some of the things that are holding it back a little bit. But of course, at the end of the day, if I had to carry one of them, and it really is a tough option for me, simply because I'm so used to Glocks. I really am, and I used to own a 36. And I just have to say that I really would just have to go with the 36. Only because since these guns are dedicated carry weapons, the Glock 36 is just more concealable, flat out. The Sig Sauer is a great gun, high quality, very comfortable, but man, it's big, it's heavy, and there's a lot of stuff for it to snag on. It just doesn't work for me in terms of concealed carry. Well, at least being better than the Glock 36 at it. But either way, I think I'd be happy if I had to use any of these guns. But if I was forced to choose, I'd go with the Glock 36. Just on sheer concealability, that's it. Not that I just think it's better, but it's just more concealable, it's thinner, it's lighter, it's the exact same capacity. If I had 2 more rounds in the Sig Sauer, I'd probably go with the Sig Sauer. But since we're talking about the exact same capacity, I'm gonna go with the Glock 36. So that's Mr. Colion Noir, and I'm out.